Hi crafty friends, this is Joy with Create It with Joy. Welcome back to my channel. Today's card is a really pretty card using Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil Kit of the Month for May. So I know I'm a little behind. I made this project a while ago and just getting it out now. So using the Glimmer Hot Foil kit from May, and then I'm also combining that with a really beautiful stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, Stronger Together stamp set, and it was from their card kit, Stronger Together. So I am starting off with some Bristol Smooth cardstock. It is watercolor paper because we're going to be using some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers for this card. So I'm just taking the leaves and I'm actually stamping that in Shabby Shutter's Distress Oxide ink. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want it to have like the no line coloring look, which you don't have to do, but I really want it to be soft because when I do the Glimmer Hot Foil on top, I really wanted that to be bold. So I'm just stamping these leaves like it's hanging down from the top right corner of this piece of cardstock. And I don't need to do any masking. I'm just kind of lining it up to where it looks like it's one big piece of foliage, if that makes sense. So I'm just cleaning my stamps really good in between each stamping. You could use really any light color ink for this. I do like that it's the Distress Oxide inks because they do react with water, and I knew it would blend well when I'm using my water brush pen, even though I don't use that correctly, but I'll explain that in a minute too. So again, just using my Misty, lining things up, stamping it great. I mean, really, you wouldn't have to use your Misty for this if you are really good at lining things up. I'm not, so I use definitely the Misty for this. So I'm going to finish up with the different leaves. There's different grouping of leaves in that Stronger Together stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. And then once that's done, I'm going to be pulling out my zigs, and I am a really simple colorer when it comes to the zigs. Some people use multiple colors to color an image, and which is fantastic. I feel like I struggle that way. So what I like to do is I have a little bit of water on my work surface. I'm using Tim Holtz glass media mat, and I spritz some water on there, and I'm using my water brush pen with no water in it because I like to control how much water I put down. So I am using mid gray for the base of these flowers. I lay the dark down, get a little bit of water on the tip of my brush, dab it off on my paper towel, and then bring it to my leaf. Then I'm taking a little bit of green gray, and I will be adding some darker spots and then blending that out a little bit. So I'm just going to continue to do that through this whole card. I'm not going to show you all of the coloring because it's the same thing over and over. But again, I'm going to lay down that mid-green color, and I'm not even coloring the whole part because I want to have darker and lighter parts. So I'm just automatically starting with shadowing, if that makes sense, when I'm laying down that darker color. And then I'm going to come back in again with that green-gray color and add a little bit darker. So that's what I'm doing here, coming in and just adding a little bit darker shadows. And I kind of like that gray that adds to it, but because it's a green-gray, you still have got the green tone to it. So I really feel like it brings these leaves to life. And then I'm just blending that out with water. Now I am taking a light gray marker and going on the outside of the leaves and a little bit of the stems because I want it to have a shadow behind. So it gives it a three-dimensional look off the page. And so I'm just adding that around, and then I will come back with a little bit of water, very light touch of water, and just slightly blend it. I mean, hardly any water at all. And just kind of softening up some of the edges. And so hopefully you can see on the camera that it does have a little more dimension. And so I really do love how that turned out. But isn't that pretty? Aren't those leaves really super pretty? They almost kind of remind me of just the coloring of like olive leaves. I don't know the shape of an olive leaf because I only look at the trees from far away, but the coloring kind of reminds me of that. So now I'm taking a black zig marker. I'm coloring it on my glass media mat, and I'm doing a lot. The tiniest bit of water, and then I'm going to do some splattering all over the back of this piece of cardstock. And this piece of cardstock is trimmed a 1/2 inch smaller all the way around. Or maybe I trimmed it after. I can't remember if I started out with it trimmed smaller or if I trimmed it after. But anyways, it ends up being a 1/2 inch smaller all the way around. Now I'm taking my Glimmer Hot Foil plate that says thanks, and I have it taped down. You can see at the top there with 2 hinges. And I'm using blush foil for this. And the reason why it's on the hinges is that way if you don't get a great impression the first time, you can just get some more foil, put it underneath, and your plate, your glimmer plate will fall in the same position it was in before, which is what happened here. I had to do it a couple times just to get a pretty good foiled image. Adding another piece of low-tack tape to the bottom to hold that in place. I am waiting for my light to turn green to say that it is ready, and once it is, I will put my plate down, push the timer button, and once that is done blinking, then you can run this through your die cut machine. I do have my 2 plates there, and I do have a paper shim in between, and you kind of just have to play around with how many shims you need. I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cut machine, and I'm going to go really slow back and forth a couple of times. Don't crank it through really fast. Take your time and go slow so that way it has a chance to adhere. Dock your thing back in its station, and then when you pull up here, you'll see I will need to definitely do it again. It just was not dark enough. So I also did add 1 more paper shim because I think that was part of the problem. It just, you know, different thicknesses of paper makes a difference. I know that Simon Says Stamp 120-pound cardstock works fabulous for Glimmer Hot Foil. So now you can see that it's done and it looks beautiful. I think I did it 2 or 3 times. I think it may have been 3 times, but then I got a great impression on there. Be careful, and that plate is hot, so be careful. So now I have a piece of ebony black cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse, just a strip of it. I prepped it with an anti-static tool. Sorry for all my crazy hair there, you guys. And I'm stamping that with Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink, and I'm going to be using some white embossing powder from Ranger. And the sentiment says, "For your kindness," and that is from Simon Says Stamp's Thanks Sentiment Stamp Set. I'm going to heat that till that's done, and then I will trim that down to a smaller sentiment strip. I just added a little bit more embossing powder to make sure I had a good coverage. Now that that's done, we're going to adhere this card together. So our glimmered background is trimmed down, and then I have a piece of black ebony cardstock, and it's just slightly larger. I just want a tiny, tiny frame, and I've watched Gina K from Gina K Designs do this, and I think it's beautiful. And then I will adhere that down to an A2 size white card base. And then we will glue on that other sentiment. So the whole sentiment will say, "Thanks for your kindness." And isn't that just so, so pretty? And I'm going to pop that sentiment up with some foam tape for dimension, of course. I just love my little sentiment strips popped up. I just think they look so pretty that way. So I'm going to adhere that down. And then I'm just going to add a few small clear dewdrops from Honeybee Stamps with some liquid glue from Lawn Fawn. I wanted a little bit of shimmer and shine, but I didn't want anything to take away from the Glimmer Hot Foil or those beautiful leaves in the background. So I will say it was really fun to have this colored image and then foil over it. It's a little nerve-wracking because you just did all that work, and if it messes up, it's a problem, but it didn't. And look at how pretty that is. Didn't that turn out just fantastic? Thank you guys so very much for stopping by. I hope that you love this project, and I hope that it inspires you to create something fabulous. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. Thumbs up, comment for sure, because I love talking with you guys. Definitely share with your crafty friends. I do have some affiliate links below. It costs you guys nothing to use, but it does help me to continue making these videos. So thank you so much for using them. Thank you for all of your support, and I will see you guys back here shortly. Bye.